Welcome to Countdown 2019 NG on Nigeria Info 99.3, where we feature all the big and significant issues on the road to 2019 elections. Remember, you can follow the program on Twitter at Countdown 2019 NG, at Rotimi Sankore, at Ideas Radio NG, at Niger Man. You can also tweet the station handle at Nigeria Info FM. Our big topic today on both the Ideas segment and on the main program, the substitution of names of some winners of primaries by political disaster. It's a recipe for disaster. So reports suggest that several political parties that conducted parallel primary elections submitted different candidates lists. So INEC has the enviable task of sifting the wheat from the chaff. How much does substitution affect the integrity, ethics, and accountability of the political process?
Well, there are several aspects that that it covers, and there are deadlines. You know, last week or the week before last, we discussed the fact that people have finished their primaries and immediately they have to rush in and submit their forms. And sometimes, particularly if you are the presidential or the gubernatorial candidate, you may still be making consultations about who's going to be your running mate. And in those circumstances, it's understandable that somebody might be substituted after wider consultation. But that's not the same as the situation that we're looking at in many parties. I will leave it to Rotimi to talk about the parallel primaries, but what has affected, that is most concerning from the point of view of the integrity of the electoral process, is the fact that parties conduct primaries, which is to say that their members vote for who do we want as the candidate in this election, and somebody emerges as the winner. And despite that person's victory in the primaries, then suddenly you find that the party, when submitting the nomination forms, has submitted a different name, somebody who did not win the primaries. And I think that is the area that is most concerning, partly because it speaks to the integrity of the political parties themselves. Why do you conduct primaries? Put people through the expense of buying the forms, waging a campaign, and perhaps emerging as victor in a fair contest. And then at the last minute you discover something. Now there may be some reasons that parties have. They may say, we discover, for example, our candidate hasn't done his NYSC, or our candidate is not a Nigerian. So there could be anything. So it's not possible to just say parties should not be able to substitute. But you have that problem, and then on top of it, you have a situation where there are allegations that even some INEC staff are colluding to substitute names that were not originally substituted.
Very, very disturbing. Would we can come in here on this one about, you got a peculiar situation here with Zamfara State where, case in point, a candidate says, I've won the primary, and it's very glaring that he's won the primary, but another name gets submitted to INEC by the political party.
Yeah, it's quite sadly, it's not just in Zamfara. It's in Zamfara, it's in Kaduna State, it's in Niger State, Ogun State. And let's look at the high-profile cases first, because the non-high-profile cases, even as of today, I was discussing with some political activists, with some activists who are members of some parties, and they were saying that their candidates that they voted for are in Abuja now struggling to make sure that their names are not substituted because the party leadership does not like them. And you know, they are practically standing at INEC to make sure that the names are not changed. And all the things Ayo mentioned, I asked, what's the issue there? Is it that they don't qualify in some? We said, no. They are vetted. They qualify in every way. It's just that the party structure wants to replace them with somebody who is more pliable, somebody who will comply with instructions.
This is a very interesting case because does the party have the power to submit a list the same as a candidate who thinks he can interfere with the process? What's the law on this one?
A candidate cannot submit the list themselves, and that's the problem. Their fate is in the hands of their political party. And as I said, I think it really does speak to the integrity of the parties and what is going on within them, because really they ought to do their vetting before the primary contest is even held, so that they can return the money to the unqualified candidate and say, sorry, you don't meet, and then the person will know where they stand and they'll know whether they want to make a fight of it. But to go through all of that, to emerge at the other end, and as I said, the fact that they have to stand guard at INEC is itself something of an indictment of INEC, and INEC needs to be very much alert and aware about what is going on under its very nose.
That's the point I'm coming to. You with civil society for several years. A number of civil society groups saying that INEC must insist that the list that they have, they stick with those lists. There's so much pressure on INEC. They already have the problem of the time, the duration. You know, the amendment, they even talked about the time they will have to submit names and all of that. How much pressure is on INEC? I mean, this is really early.
No. I'm sorry, if you don't like the heat, you don't enter the kitchen. This is the time of INEC. It's bound to be hot. There's bound to be pressure. The issue is whether INEC is going to respond to that pressure with integrity from an ethical position, or whether it's going to, under guise of we can't be everywhere, we're not accountable for what our own staff are doing, whether they will now just disclaim all responsibility for what is happening. And I don't think that the issue of pressure is going to wash with the Nigerian public. A huge amount of money goes into the elections in Nigeria, and part of that money is supposed to pay INEC staff. They shouldn't have their hands out for anything else.
So if you look at the multiple scenarios we have, some of it is power play. Let's look at someone like Senator Shehu Sani from Kaduna State.
Before you go on, Shehu Sani, are you surprised that Shehu Sani would agree to such a process, saying that you be an automatic candidate without going through the electoral process?
Well, it's not whether he wants an automatic ticket or not. It's that he wants a transparent process. And as an incumbent senator, no one, to his understanding, has complained that he did not represent the constituency well. It is known that there are problems between him and the governor of the state.
Right.
You know, they clash on process, on party direction. And Shehu Sani is more of an independent-minded person than most politicians. So he feels if my constituency wants me to go back, it shouldn't be a problem. Why has my name been changed?
And but was his name originally on the? Did they hold primaries?
Well, he says he says that his constituency party duly nominated him, but that this party in the state did not want him
to contest in the primary.
Yes, and that's when this controversy started about the insinuation that the presidency said. This is what the governor said. That the presidency said that he speaks his mind too much. It causes confusion, and that we can't have such people in the party. That's what the governor's camp said. The presidency then came out and said, actually, no, we did not say any such thing. Yes. We did not say anybody should be punished or removed from the list. So Shehu Sani said, okay, he will wait and see where it goes. But apparently, the party in the state holds more sway than his constituency. Now, if you look globally...
Than his constituency party.
Yes, than his constituency party, which wants him. But the party at the state says, no, you are not the guy we want.
Now, does that come under the heading of substitution, or just outright
imposition,
chicanery and exclusion?
If your constituency party says this is the person we want to represent us, and the state party or the national party says no. So if there is no primary between the person the constituency party wants and the person the state party wants, then obviously there is a problem. It can't be called substitution, but he's been blocked or another candidate has been imposed on the party, which raises a big issue, which is what we'll come to in the main part of the program, about if your preferred candidate from your constituency is removed, will it affect your commitment to vote for your party, or will you, as in the case of Shehu Sani, follow him to PRP? But it's also happening in many permutations. You can see the governor of Ogun State saying to the media that the national chair of the party, Oshomole,
That's the APC.
the APC, yes, that the national...
But I think it's important that we should recognize that this is not something that is happening in all political parties.
It is not in all parties, yes. And sadly, of the ones where it is happening, the APC happens to be the most prominent because it's the ruling party. And therefore, the tickets are seen as more juicy. Hot tickets, more guaranteed. If you get it, you are almost there. The same thing happened with PDP in 2015. So it's not an APC issue, it's an issue of a ruling or incumbent parties, where everybody assumes that if you are the candidate of the party in power in Abuja, that your chances of winning the seats is increased.
Although talking of 2015, I should say that when I mentioned on the Twitter handle of at Ideas Radio NG that we were going to be discussing this issue, one of my Twitter communicants, Zila Karaiwe, he said, please don't forget to mention the case of Delta APC in 2015, where a death certificate was presented because under the rules with INEC, you're entitled to substitute up to 45 days before the election. After the election, after that 45-day limit, if somebody dies, then INEC may have to arrange another day
for a by-election.
For a fresh another election. But in this case, the death certificate was presented and INEC put somebody else in, and then the dead man turned up and was said, here I am, Mr. Lazarus.
Hilarious. But I will be
hilarious but sad.
Really sad.
But sorry, Aho, but this points to the issue about collusion. Because can INEC do due diligence if someone brings a death certificate and says the candidate has passed away, and the INEC official takes it and says, okay, we'll take the new name, and then the person turns up and says, I'm still here. Does it mean that INEC doesn't do due diligence with the issuing authority for that certificate?
Absolutely. They just will argue many times they're just one of several stakeholders.
But you see, when we talk about integrity of the system, you can be sure that death certificate was obtained on the correct form and from the correct place.
It brings me to this point about not being enough
time. Without a body.
Pressure cooker politics we sort of run in the country. INEC can't stand the heat, leave the kitchen, but they will have to face this.
It's not so
what,
much.
what about the courts? Because people have talked about the courts
the
being
thing is
that
in fact, I was just being surprised to hear that a case in which I was interested at the Supreme Court has been adjourned till February 2020. But that's not a political case. It's not a case in which and the Supreme Court will be and the Court of Appeal will be involved in the litigation that comes. But unlike the situation where you have an election petition which has a specific time limit, in the case of intra-party disputes, because INEC's position is that if your name is wrongly substituted after you have won the primaries, you have to go to court and get it changed. Now, you can also apply to INEC for a certified true copy of the result of the primary, and this is where the importance of ensuring that INEC officials are present when the party is conducting its affairs is present. But you have to go to court, and that court process may actually be concluded after the election. And if we remember, this was how Rotimi Amechi became governor of Rivers State in 2007, because, or after 2007, or more like 2008, because after the election had been concluded, he went to the Supreme Court, and or he got his case finally reached the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said he's the candidate of the People's Democratic Party, swear him in. And that was it.
In other words, he's the one that won the primary,
Yeah.
and that the party substituted Amechi's name and put someone else's name, and that the person that was parading himself as governor could not be said to be duly elected because he did not win the PDP primary.
Very true.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll bring the segment to a close, but it's just one part of a big talking point we have.
Well, I just want to say thank you to all the listeners to the Ideas segment. Please don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Ideas Radio NG. And you can also check us out on our website, ideasradio.ng, and you can get copies of you can revisit or rewatch some of the episodes of this program.
All right, Calmo 2019 is only